Hey everybody, welcome back to Feedback Loop. This is Jeremy.
And this is Joey. And this
I feel
week,
like I usually say my name is.
Yeah.
This week we say this is.
My name is Jeremy.
Yeah. Chicky, Jeremy and Joey.
Except I'm Joey. I'm not Jeremy. But
That's true. I'm Jeremy, he is Joey.
yes.
You guys, if you've listened to more than this episode of the podcast, you know that.
Yeah. But
hopefully.
if this is your first episode, then sorry.
Yeah. Introductions are important, I suppose, in that scenario. This week, I have something I want to talk about a little bit, and then we can dig into some nonsense that Joey has mentioned after
Yes.
that. Loosey-goosey episode this week. Don't know how long it's going to be. But the thing I was thinking about a few weeks back is it's something that I think about. I don't want to say often, but occasionally I'll think about the way society has advanced, right? Specifically in regards to how we listen to music. And I think we've talked a little bit in the past about streaming services, right, and how that affects how we listen to music.
Yeah.
And I think that's that can be a discussion in itself, right? If it's too accessible, right? If the pros and cons of that. But in my thought process recently, I was thinking that I don't know, I collect physical media, right? I collect vinyl records. I have a bunch of CDs. But even digitally, it's nice. I think it's nice to have a collection of songs, of albums, of music, right? It's not physically mine, but if it's on my hard drive, I feel like it's a curated collection, a museum of sorts, right? And I feel like having the vast infinite power of the internet to stream anything whenever we want, that you kind of miss out on that a bit. It's so easy to add things to your library or whatever online that there's no effort being made,
Yes.
right? There's no work being exerted from the user to listen to something, and so it feels less special to me. I think that it's there's less intention, I guess, behind it. You know what I'm saying?
I 100% do. Like, the feeling of just picking out any song on my phone from Spotify is vastly different than back when I was a delivery driver and I had an iPod.
Exactly.
That it's like I had music on my iPod and I was like, okay, this is the music that I have, and pick from that. Like, it's just, it doesn't feel as special. It doesn't feel as unique. And I mean, there's still people that curate playlists and all that stuff on Spotify, sure, but it doesn't feel like it's yours. It more just feels like this interconnected web of music that's just kind of out there, and you're kind of just a part of that instead of you're your own person who somebody's going to come to you and be like, oh, check out this guy's CD. You don't
exactly,
you're going to your grandpa's house and you're like, oh, you got a vinyl collection of the music that you used to listen to back in the day. And now it's like, okay, I mean, I guess maybe we have what your top listens to were in a certain year or something, but those aren't really stored anywhere unless you actively try to do it, and that really doesn't capture all of the music that you would have wanted to get. And it's also a product of the same system where that whole year you're kind of just coasting, there's this music here, I guess I'll just play it because it's easy or whatever, and not necessarily music that you would have bought.
Right. Yeah, and it's I don't know. It's because there's not intention behind it. It feels less meaningful, I guess, to me. It feels like it is devalued in some way to have music be so just tossed around so easily and freely, right? And it's a great thing. Right?
Oh yeah.
I'm not saying that no, we need to shut down streaming services and make music harder to listen to for people because that's silly.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think for me personally, I like the feeling of finding something and adding it to my collection, whether that's physically or digitally. Just like, I don't know, it feels cheapened, I think, a little bit by having access to literally anything at any point in time, right? With going back to like physical media specifically, you were limited vastly at what you could listen to by like what you could find in a store, or what you could order online,
or like where you lived and what
you can buy on iTunes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even iTunes, like arguably, like while it was an online store, there was still that transactional thing that you're adding something to your library intentionally, you're spending your money to do, right? Whereas now you pay a monthly fee and you have access to literally everything that has been uploaded to the internet ever.
And I think the barrier of entry to get onto the iTunes store as an artist was harder. So it's not like...
That's true.
There's tons of stuff that didn't make it onto the iTunes store that now... I mean, anybody can make a Spotify account and start uploading music or stuff like that. So... Which
is good. I think it's good that like... removing those barriers for both the listener and the creator is great, right? It allows artists to have less of a barrier to entry to get their music out there, and for the consumer, it's easier for them to find those kind of things that normally you wouldn't find in a record store or in a Walmart or on the iTunes market or whatever. So I don't know. I think the point that I'm trying to get is that like, I want to revert. I think I've been thinking a lot about like, I don't know, just going back to ye old days of not necessarily going all the way to physical media, which I still do collect. I buy a lot of vinyl, just because it's nice to have a collection of things. I think I'm not a hoarder, but I like collections. I like having things.
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, like it's a. I don't know the word for it. I was going to say like personality trait, but that's not necessarily what I'm going for. But it's like your style, like you're wearing clothes. So like it's your collection, and people who come over can see it or whatever. And it's like, I mean, you think about, this was the first CD I ever bought. Like a lot of people remember stuff like that, or this was the first vinyl I ever bought. Right. I remember the first CD I ever bought. The first vinyl I ever bought was much later in my life than the first CD I ever bought. But I remember what it was. And but I don't remember the first album I ever streamed on Spotify.
Right.
Like it's
less special.
Yeah, it doesn't...
It's a less of a momentous occasion, I think. And like I guess looping back to what you were just saying, there's also the part of in creating that collection, you are curating a part of yourself, like part of you're finding ways to show other people who you are or how you feel and how you think, and so like being, even if it's on an iPod, right, being over at a friend's house looking through their iTunes collection or whatever gives you insight into who they are. Right? It helps you like understand them better. It helps them make it easier for you to understand them. And like you can argue that you still do get that with online streaming services, right? People have playlists, people have access to those things. Like you have your own personal library of shit that you've saved. But I guess to reiterate, it feels less meaningful to me. Because there's less intention behind it. There's less work being done to present or compile that kind of image of who you are and what kind of music you like.
Yeah, I'd agree. Like, and I don't want to sound like a fucking boomer, like kids these days type deal, but I'm starting to get to that age where there's plenty of stuff that I remember which maybe it's because I'm old and cynical now that my view on stuff is different, but like things back in the day used to seem a lot more special because they were harder to do. But
exactly, that's what I was about to say, is that like I think it is a curse that every generation will have, is that life is just getting easier for people in general. And hopefully, ideally, that's the way that it should be.
Yes.
We should keep progressing, technologically or whatever, to make life easier for people.
Yes.
Because ideally that will lead to some form of utopia. Right?
Fucking great.
If at a certain point in time, life is easy enough for everybody to live without any stress, right? Then that's a utopia, right? There would be no need for crime. There would be no need for shit like that and war and whatnot if life was just easy.
Now,
Which, I mean, obviously the human element, people like conflict. There will always be war probably, but in the ideal, ether is that like you want your kids to have an easier life than you did, and I think that will continue from generation to generation. And I'm sure that like I'm not even gonna say I'm sure. I know for a fact that people, a couple generations older than us would look at this conversation and be like, oh well, like it feels less special to have CDs because back in my day we had to record on the radio.
Yeah.
Like we would have a tape recorder, and when our song came on, which we had no control over, we had to record it on a tape recorder. And I agree that like that feels way more special than going to a Walmart and buying a CD, but I think it's just another step. Right? It's a middle step to the current day of streaming, and theoretically at some point in the future there might be some new way of experiencing music, whether that's like through a cybernetic implant or something, I don't know, but like I don't know, at some point it will feel less special, I think, than having like Spotify, which in turn feels less special than buying CDs, which feels less special than tape recording stuff, which feels less special, I guess, than only having live music as a medium. Like
it has to be an event. Which then it's like super gated. Like the people who can afford the tickets can go see live.
Well, like I was thinking, like going back further historically, not even that tickets were more expensive, but you're limited to
where you live,
your local region.
Yeah.
Like you could only see people that were in your tribe, right? Going back like super far.
Yeah.
Right? Music was incredibly limited that way. And like obviously we still have concerts today, so like we're not losing that kind of access to that method of listening to music, but now I feel like it's kind of reversed itself in that like if at some point in the past the only way to experience music was to go to concerts, now it feels kind of the opposite in that you only go to concerts for things that you've already listened to.
Yeah.
Right. If you're not going to like random like I mean, you do go to festivals and get exposed to a lot of stuff that way, but like I don't know. For the most part, going to live music stuff is because you already have an idea of what to expect. You're not going there to throw yourself into something completely new, and I don't know. Maybe that's also less special in some way.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. Especially with the price of everything, the price of concert tickets nowadays, and it's like
and gas to get to the concert.
Like, life is a lot easier when it comes to like all this technology stuff. But like, Jesus fucking Christ, if everything else could catch up to that'd be sick nasty. If like,
if our political systems would age and progress with the modern society.
Because sometimes it seems like the older generation didn't want life to be easier for us, or they're fucking upset that it is now.
Exactly. Yeah. They're cranky that we have it so easy.
I don't want to be that way. I want my daughter to have a good life, but also a much easier life. Not that I had it hard. I did not have. I lived a really fucking easy life. Like, sure. At least comparatively to
exactly
to plenty.
It has to be relative, right? People back in the medieval ages, right, were struggling day to day to survive. You know?
I mean, I've had more. I had tacos earlier. That's not something that a medieval peasant would ever get to taste. Tacos.
Yeah, I think food and music are very similar in a lot of ways, and I use food to explain musical concepts to people all the time, right? As far as just like having tastes and curation, but there is also that kind of like, I don't know, you could argue that like having fast food restaurants devalues food, right? It makes it less special to have a meal, right? And you have access, like, it's great because you can go get tacos now, because tacos have spread out of, Mexico or wherever the origin of the taco is. I'm not sure, but those traditionally like local cuisines can now be experienced all over the world, which is great.
Yeah.
But there's also like that kind of devaluing of what it means, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean as much, I guess, to go get a Taco Bell taco versus going like on a vacation somewhere where it's authentic and stuff like that, like pasta or whatever it is,
Yeah.
So I do think that there's a lot of parallels between music and food, so that's a fun thought experiment to like compare things and concepts like that. But
well, those are two things that I love, music and food, so I'm glad to have them together.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's all that I just needed to vent. I just needed to get all that out, just to talk about, like, I don't know, the fact that I'm probably going to, I don't want to say I'm probably, but I've been considering like canceling music subscription services and going back to like being more intentional with the music I listen to, I think, and how I experience that. And it's not going to be easy because I do love discovering new shit, and the easiest way to discover new shit is via these streaming services. So maybe I won't, but I think I'm going to put more focus on curating my own special collection of things, I guess, as well.
Hey, man, I that's a very fruitful endeavor, and I hope that you go through with it. I would love to do the same thing.
Even if that means buying things on Bandcamp, Segway.
Oh my god.
Then like that's an easy option for a lot of artists, and a great way to discover shit too.
Yeah.
So maybe Bandcamp is the solution that I'm looking for. However, I have been informed that there are some ongoings that might disrupt such a thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not like super well versed in the history of the Bandcamp being bought by Epic Games. Out there, people know. I think it was 2 years ago, maybe, it got bought by Epic Games, and people were flipping their shit like, oh my god. Because Bandcamp, historically, is a great place for, like, up-and-coming indie musicians without, like, a label. They can just go out there, put their shit out there, actually sell it for money and get fair profits from
relatively fair.
Relatively fair. We were just talking about streaming service. Relatively fair compared to a lot of the other ways to get yourself out there on the internet. So it got bought by Epic Games, which a lot of people, I hope, will agree, that is an epic shithole when it comes to a lot of, like, I don't know, just monetization and weird, like, I mean, they made Fortnite, and it's just not like EA games. Not like EA games, not as bad as them, not as bad as, like...
Right.
But,
yeah,
like...
I don't know. I think Epic has come around in the public eye.
Have they?
As far as, like, maybe not necessarily as developers of video games, but, like, the Epic Games storefront, I think people have eased up. I know at the onset there was a lot of, like, talk of them leaking or selling or gathering a lot of, like, private personal information and shit from computers that left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. I don't know if they ever changed that, but the public perception of it is less cautious or hazardous, and they give a lot of free games out. And honestly, even, like, comparing music to video games in this way, right, I think that Epic Games provides a bigger cut of sales to developers than Steam does.
Yeah.
Steam being the other, like, big giant in that kind of digital games distribution service kind of thing.
Valve is getting pretty weird when it comes to that stuff. But that's...
I mean, I don't think they're getting weird. I think it's just, like, they've been that way. They've been the standard.
Yeah.
Right? For so long that, like, they don't have to worry about changing anything. They don't have to, like, appeal to developers because Steam is the platform.
Yeah, they have the monopoly on online gaming or
and it's becoming less
gaming.
so.
Yeah,
it's becoming less so. So, like, I don't know. A lot of publishers have tried, I guess I should say, for the last, like, decade to get their own launcher services. Right, like Ubisoft has their store, Epic Games has a store, Blizzard has a store, EA has a store. Like, all of these things are trying and failing. I think Epic Games is the closest to a competitor that Steam has, but yeah, I think I'm not 100% sure on, like, the business side of Epic Games, but I think in general the public perception of Epic Games has gotten softer.
Yeah.
Has gotten more accepting of Epic Games.
I just know, like, my thing about them is like Fortnite and like the V-Bucks and stuff, which is a monetization method that I don't necessarily agree with, where it's like, okay, well, these skins cost 1,100 V-Bucks, but we only sell them in packs of 1,000, so you're going to have to buy 1,000 and then buy 1,000 more.
Right.
Like, you got to buy an extra 900
Yeah.
that you...
Microtransactions are a bane to modern gaming.
But that's not necessarily all on Epic Games, because fucking everybody does that.
Yeah, and they set the trend. Like, obviously, like, you can say shame on you for doing such a thing, but like, it was gonna happen.
Yeah.
At some point anyway. Like, there are literal like teams devoted to figuring out the best ways to make money from, you know, your players, your consumers.
Yeah. I'm fucking looking at you, Bethesda, with your horse armor. You started all that shit. It wasn't Epic Games.
Hey, I bought the horse armor and I have no regrets.
Hey, I got the horse armor for free, quote unquote, by buying the Game of the Year edition of
True
or something. It was something
that
like
as well.
I don't know.
That didn't exist at the time.
It didn't.
Sorry.
No.
Looping back to Bandcamp, we've derailed a little bit.
We're passionate about food, music, and video games. There we go. But yeah, so Epic bought Bandcamp, and people were freaking out, thinking it was going to be the end of the world into Bandcamp, because Bandcamp has historically been a great place for artists online. And nothing happened. Nothing bad happened from Epic so people were like, oh, this is fucking sick. Okay. They just have a bunch of money now because they got bought out by Epic Games. They're not really changing anything about the Bandcamp formula. This is great. But nobody understood why Epic would have bought Bandcamp and then just kind of like not do anything with it. Mm-hmm. So now the other shoe has dropped, and Epic sold Bandcamp to a music licensing company called SongTrader, and now is when the shit is starting to happen.
Yeah,
which sucks for Bandcamp, and really sucks for potentially for the future of artists trying to get their foot in the door on Bandcamp. So far it's looking like the actual like music selling thing isn't really changing, but in the past, Bandcamp has like had these awesome like curated like finding new music and articles and interviews and all this stuff.
Right.
SongTrader has laid off like 50% of Bandcamp staff, most of which are in the journalistic area, which means that probably a lot of those like curated picks that highlight new up and coming artists or help new artists become up and coming, those are probably going to start going away. Which, I don't know. It kind of like makes me think of Spotify and like how the algorithm kind of chooses new like big artists already to like promote their music and all this stuff. It's kind of getting harder and harder to organically find a lot of the newer music and more unknown music, unless you find it somewhere else and then look for it on Spotify or something. Right. So hoping that Bandcamp doesn't become that. But also the fact that SongTrader is a music licensing company. So like I'm hoping that's scary. Yeah, like it's scary, it's weird, it's uncharted territory, especially with the fact that relatively Bandcamp has been a pretty good way to like make some money while getting your name out there, and really hoping that since they're a music licensing company, they don't like fuck around with like the ownership of a lot of the music that's going on to the...
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah. Is that like I'm less concerned about the journalism part of that going away, quote unquote. Obviously, it's horrible that they're laying off so many people. Layoffs suck.
Yes.
Right. There's no way around that. But I think I think there's always going to be an audience for that kind of thing. Right, so whether or not that's on Bandcamp, I don't think is as meaningful.
Yeah.
Right, those journalists can find other platforms on which they can share their stuff. So if they have a fan base, those fans will follow them wherever they go. Right, theoretically.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. There's a large portion of people that incidentally I guess, read those articles or whatever it is on Bandcamp, they're not going out of their way to like find those articles necessarily. So there's something to be said that, but yeah, the fact that it's like a music licensing company that is now in charge of what is, I should say, and has formerly been a great way for artists to like you said, get your foot in the door to release that shit without the kind of stress that comes with, like, you know, having a major label.
Yeah.
And worrying about who owns your music kind of a thing, right? Like, I don't know, I haven't read Bandcamp's like terms of service and shit, so like I'm sure that there was already like something in there could have been something in there that like Bandcamp now owns your songs, right? I don't know that that's the case, but it seems more likely now, right?
Yeah.
That there's like licensing, a licensing corporation owning it now. It is way more likely that they will slip something like that in to like say, hey, sorry, now we own all music that's hosted on our site.
Yeah, and then they're gonna start fucking pushing out like unknown artists into like Kia commercials or something, and then the artists are not gonna see anything from that. But hoping it doesn't go that way. I'm not gonna be crossing my fingers that it won't, but
yeah, I mean, anytime there's a lot of these acquisitions happening, I feel like lately, right? And I feel like anytime that is happening, there's always this initial wave of panic, right? Elon Musk buying Twitter.
Oh my god.
Right.
Yeah.
Upset a lot of people, freaked out a lot of people. People panicked. Like, I don't give a shit because I'm not on Twitter.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I feel like there's always this kind of like panic when something happens that is maybe warranted, but maybe also like not warranted as much, I suppose.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard not to panic whenever just the state of things, like, and we know how shitty people can really be, like,
for sure.
I mean, the Elon Musk thing, buying Twitter, like, it's fucking stupid, and I mean, he way overpaid for it. Dude could have like spent half that money and probably still got Twitter, but like now it's like it's still its own thing. I mean, the name change and all that, it was stupid, but like it's still the same general platform, right? Other than the fact that I think you have to pay for blue check marks now, which is
sure.
Like, what? Why? What's happened? Like,
yeah.
But
yeah,
I mean, like the general basic structure of Twitter is still, like, I'm sure the random fucking like Rule 34 artists that got all their commissions from Twitter are still doing that. And
right. I will say the change for Twitter specifically, I don't want to talk about this too long, but like Twitter specifically now, or I guess X as you could call it now, the only negative impact that I have had, or that the only impact that has been negative from my perspective, I guess, is that now you have to be logged in to view a lot of shit that previously you didn't have to be, which means making an account, which means signing into that account, which means providing more data for them on the back end, right? So they're encouraging, and by encouraging I mean mandating that more people sign up and use the platform.
Yeah.
Right? As opposed to just being a spectator of the platform, which is what I have been traditionally, I guess.
I'm really butthurt about that because League is coming out for old school RuneScape, and for some reason they do all of their announcements on Twitter. So now I try to go see Twitter, and it's like it's not there. I can't see it. But
yep, that's really shitty, and I hate that shit. Typically in those cases, I just try to like find, you know, another source. A lot of the times they cross-post that shit to other social media or to their own website if they have a blog or something. And then you can usually find stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's very, very common that Twitter is like the source of truth for a lot of like developer communication.
Yeah.
Right, which is unfortunate, I think, when there's so many other options that are better. And I think, like, I don't know, it will eventually even itself out. People will start using other social media, right? And theoretically, like, it's not going to, like, I don't know, it's not the end of the world, I guess, right? there will be another platform for developers to share that stuff, or for musicians to like share their music, just because it's an inevitability, right? Patreon now exists because of YouTube monetization going to shit. So like there will always be something, some new innovation or some new platform with which you can access all this shit. But yeah, that's just the way the world is, I think. And I don't have a segue into our closing thoughts, but do you have anything else you wanted to talk about either of these topics?
I don't. And sorry if I look very fidgety. All you people out there, a fucking ladybug just flew underneath my shirt while Jeremy was talking, and it was really distracting to me.
I didn't even notice. I was not paying attention.
It was awful.
But yeah, I guess we'll just go on to some music recs.
Yes.
I've listened to a whole lot of music in the past couple weeks, in part because there's a whole lot of music that's come out recently, specifically. I should have had a list. I don't have a list written, at least. So some quick shout outs. Poppy's new album released, called Zig. I really enjoy that album. It gets better every time I listen to it, I think. DJ Shadow released an album that's very good. I want to say, Cascade. Cascade also released Redux 6, I think. I'm a big fan of his like Redux series. They're my favorite like EPs. They're my favorite collected songs, I guess, of Cascade's music discography, I think. So yeah, check those out. What have you been listening to, Joey? Anything exciting or new or fresh?
I have some stuff that's, I mean, it's new. There's new Frog, so they have 2 new singles. One is called Black on Black on Black, which is, I like it. It's a very good song. It's a very updated sound from their like whatever alt country sound that they used to have. And then they have a new one, Maybelline, which kind of sounds like disco-y. So I'm really just wondering what this new album is going to sound like. And the new album comes out on November 17th. It's called Grog. So I'm pretty pumped for that. It's 2 Fridays
Grog
from now.
by Frog.
Grog by Frog. Outside of that, Taylor Swift's Taylor's version of 1989 just came out, I think is what it was.
Have you been vibing with that?
Somebody in my car has been vibing with that. But yeah, I've been listening to a lot of Level Up, and that's been cool. They're a band kind of in the similar vein to Pile, I guess, like the really like overblown, like kind of 90s grungy sounding slow rock, I guess you could call it.
Hell yeah.
So I've been listening to Level Up. Any of their albums, really. I don't have one I can specifically recommend over another one, but the song Nightshade's really good, so listen to that.
Cool. I'll definitely check it out. That jogged my memory of something that I guess is a relatively new discovery for me. The band Nothing, whom I had never listened to before. I finally like got around to, because there's another band called Full of Hell that does a lot of like collab albums. They released a single with Nothing because they're doing an album together, a collab album with Nothing.
Oh hell yeah!
And Full of Hell's like a kind of like deathcore kind of like very like extreme metal kind of thing. Nothing is like a very like popular is not the right word, a well-known, well-respected perhaps shoegaze band that does a lot of like shoegaze rock stuff. That honestly, like I've always like, I don't want to say I've always, but like in the past 5 years, right, I've been introduced to shoegaze, and every time I hear something shoegaze, I'm like, I fucking love this, but I've never gone out of my way to like look into that kind of genre. So I finally listened to most of Nothing's discography, I think last weekend, and just had a really great time with it.
Well, hell yeah, I like Nothing. Never heard of Full of Hell, so I'll check them out.
Yeah, I definitely recommend checking out they have a single together. I can't think of what it's called right now. But they have a song together, and they're doing an album together, and I'm very excited for that album now. So, yeah, I think that covers all of my my shout-outs. That covers your shout-outs. We got through a couple big topics, I think. So, this was fun. Stay on our feedback loop.
Bye.